Mr. Brent Wade Houchins. I was thinking about things and in detail in their entirety, and how different strategies of psychotherapy and people play games and control games, and in abusive relationships and in authoritarian roles. You have an episode of Negating Improvement, and Negating Improvement, to explain it kind of briefly, is exactly what it sounds like. It's when a person is trying to progress and improve in some sort of way, and another person negates that improvement. And in control factors, I'll give you a quick scenario of a relationship. You have two people engaged in a relationship, and no matter what the relationship is, you have an alpha and a subordinate. And whether it be in a personal, intimate relationship, whether it be in a friendship, whether it be in a family relationship, a neighborly relationship, or a workplace relationship, you can have a situation, and let's say, for instance, there's a person who has a problem with substance abuse, and you have another person who exerts a certain authority role over that person, and becomes abusive with that authority, and their desire is to control that person. And I spoke before about control factors and positions, and by that person's desire to control this weaker person due to their problematic circumstances, at times throughout this scenario that I'm going to give you, they negate improvement. And as the person, let's say, has a substance abuse problem, and there's a person who works with them in the workplace, or a person in a relationship, and they abstain from abusing substances. And then you have the control person who desires to control the person with the problem with substance abuse. And as the person with the substance abuse problem begins to improve and sober up and gain mental clarity and different life skills and dexterity, the person no longer has the same amount of control factor that they once had and could exert over this person in the circumstance. And they would negate improvement by, possibly saying, you've been doing really good not drinking. Why don't we just go out and have dinner? You can have a beer if you want. You've done really good. You can have a beer with dinner if you want. In a intent not so much to destroy the person's improvement, but to negate it in a sense, to pull back. Or to another one's at the workplace. We'll say a person is training. You have a trainer and a trainee, and a person is supposed to train or cross-train this individual to a certain job set or job skills, and they don't fully disclose and offer the best benefit in training that they could in order to negate improvement from a newer individual who may be taking that position, by seeing them as a threat to their scale of gradation or power control. And I think you have that a lot. I've dealt with it before in relationships, being a person who struggled greatly with substance abuse and alcoholism and drug abuse. And there were a lot of times that I would allow certain behavior from a person, and I'd allow them to behave a certain way, talk to me a certain way, treat me a certain way, even all the way up to infidelity, because I was dealing with a lot of guilt in my own substance abuse, and I would drink, and there'd be times I wouldn't watch money properly. There'd be times I wouldn't handle responsibilities properly. There were times that I wouldn't engage with a person the way I should have in the relationship. And then I would sober up, and I would start to be able to identify this other person's personality traits that were in conflict with my lifestyle and where I desired to be at by not using substances. Whether it be one person using and another person not, or the drama. I had one person that they caused drama all the time in my life, and if I were under the influence of alcohol or drugs, the drama was really nothing. It was more background noise, and as long as I had drink and as long as things were taken care of, I could tolerate it and deal with it, even all the way up to infidelity. As long as you run off, and as long as you come back and everything gets taken care of, and I'm still drinking good, eating good, and smoking good, nothing matters. And then I would sober up, and the person would still try the drama over frivolous issues, and to spin this cycle out into some whirlwind of drama. And I thought, this is crazy. What are you even wound up about? And then I realized I can't deal with this person, and this person couldn't deal with me. They could not deal with me with a sober mind and clarity. And in this particular past engagement, it was really more of an affair than a relationship. But in this affair, there was a lot of infidelity on their behalf. I never, in this particular relationship, never cheated, but it was an affair to start with. So I was invested where another person wasn't even invested in their own primary investment. And there was a lot of negating the improvement. There was times when I would slip back into drinking and would start to drink again, and for whatever reason, this person would want me to get really drunk, so I wouldn't pay attention, pass out, and they could do what they wanted to. Once I was passed out, it gave a little bit of free time, unmonitored and unaccountable time that they could do whatever they wanted to do, whether come, leave, sneak out the back door, have sex with somebody, whatever it may be. Do a certain thing that they wouldn't do normally face to face with me. And I noticed as I started to drink, I would say, when I first started drinking again during this engagement or this affair, I'd start drinking. I thought, man, I'm not really feeling it right now. Maybe why don't you want your drink? Do you want your drink? How come you're not drinking your beer? And there were different instances that I seen negating improvement with substance abuse. Also, like I said, on the job site, there are times when you get cross-trained to a new position and you have a trainer and a trainee, and when I was being trained, a person would not properly offer the right type of training and assistance. In order to do so, it would negate improvement. And I don't know if they felt threatened occupationally or it was a withholding. And it was not beneficial to the employer, it was not beneficial to the trainer or the trainee. And negating improvement has been a struggle. You'll find that sometimes, and I think most recently there's Operation Icebreaker had really opened my eyes to the role of corruption in Clark County, Indiana, and their role with confidential informants and their abuse and the relationship with A&E series, and opened my eyes to a lot of things. But most importantly, watching this this large-scale operation as a low-level user, very low-level user, and watching a large-scale operation from being a part of it, going through open-air drug markets and being investigated myself, I was able to see how they would use confidential informants not only to sell drugs, but to also there's prostitution involved, and I could really tell as I began to. I would have an episode about every 6 weeks. I would relapse, and I was still able to hold a job. But I noticed as I stayed away from people that did drugs, people that sold drugs, as I stayed away long enough to get together, it became more aggressive. Ironically, as I got paid, they would, there would be promiscuous females that would come and look to engage at that point, or people who would, it would negate my improvement by circumstance. And I think about a person that gets tied into that role, and with law enforcement and unethical practices in law enforcement, and there's a certain person that sticks out in mind. Names are not important in this moment, but I watched this person develop from a user who would sometimes cop for other people and help them out to turn into a full-blown prostitute, and would trade their body for money for sex, or for money for primal needs, place to stay, food, clothing, and anybody who has any experience with human trafficking can see as a person no longer engages or is willing to engage in that promiscuous behavior, or that distribution of drugs, or that trickle of information, there is a desire to negate that improvement, because as the person improves, they no longer want to prostitute. So you have a pimp who's concerned about losing money. You have a drug dealer who uses pushers, and if they stop selling drugs, or a user who they use as a front to sell the drugs, if they quit using, they'll go hunt them down and try to pull them back in. And here, man, show you some love. I'm gonna show you some get back. Yeah, it's okay, you're not using, but here, and negate their improvement for their own selfish desire and gain, and to reap the graft of that person's life. And negating improvement can also be done in family members. Sometimes a person has a certain dependency or a certain need, and they're very codependent on another family member, and the person becomes interdependent and wants to be independent, and maybe relocate and move to another location, or have their own independence and freedom from that. You have a lot of empty nest syndrome with families at times when someone moves out or moves away, and they'll negate improvement for that individual, so they can't gain their own independence. And it's something for us all to think about. We should never negate another person's improvement, but always encourage it, and never try to control a person. Only try to encourage a person suggestively. And when you try to control a person, you always put yourself in a weaker position, because you're subject to that person's actions, and it always puts you in a lesser position. So negating improvement is just another thing I wanted to touch in on, and make a sort of a note for myself, and an expression. And I'm no therapist, but social media is a great avenue to do so, and I wanted to connect with people and get some feedback about it. And I've got about 9 months clean and sober. I'm not allowing anyone to negate my improvement. Life has not gotten any easier, but I have become a better person. I am not better than anyone else. I am only better than what I was. And I won't allow any relationships, whether it be family, employment, law enforcement. There's nothing I will allow to negate my improvement. I am solely responsible for me, my recovery, and my life, and the route that I take. And no one, period, will control any factors from a number one position by a desire to control me. They will always be in a lesser number two position, and I will not be responsive. I refuse to be responsive to someone else's desire to control. You can control environmental factors, like work schedules, or amount of pay, or places available, but you cannot control individual response to those factors. I will not respond in a way that will cause a relapse, or to lock me into a dependency upon someone else, or allow someone else to be dependent upon me. No one, at this point, for the record, no one should ever be dependent on me. I am dealing with my own independence, and gaining progress in doing so. Socially, I feel very comfortable as I go through the Louisville area. Has been a great blessing to me. Seeking refuge post-Operation Icebreaker, and all the damage that was done over there with that failed operation, and my personal experience with that is not a proper place to go into detail on social media, but trust factors with law enforcement were greatly affected, but my trust with society and social interactions are not at all. And nothing will negate my improvement from this point. And again, with 9 months clean and sober, I feel great. And social media is a great platform to reach out for people. Whether you're clean and sober or not, I'd love to hear some feedback and some comments about people possibly negating circumstances that you've dealt with in the past. So let me know, and reply if you run across this message. Mr. Brent Wade House.